All right, everybody. I believe we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are welcoming you to this session, which is the Leaders of Industry, featuring Karen Hertz with Holidaily Brewing, which is a brewery in Golden, Colorado. And she's going to give us all kinds of great information about her story and her business. Before we get started, there's just a few things logistically we'd like to go over. All the attendees are automatically muted to eliminate background noise during the event, but you can always ask a question through the Ask a Question box that you can find right underneath the screen there. It says Ask a Question, and we can then get to those at the end of the session. If you pop over to that Ask a Question and you see a question that's been asked that you like, go ahead and give it an upvote. That's going to push it towards the top, and those questions with the highest upvotes will be asked first, okay? You can also put a question into the chat bar. If you add a question mark at the end, it's going to give you a little pop-up. Do you want to add this to ask a question? Go ahead and do that and say add it to the Ask a Question box if you can. You can make comments throughout the event in the chat. It's around the right hand of the screen, but keep in mind that only questions in the Ask a Question feed will be answered at the end of the event, okay? I'll also be posting links as we go. If Karen mentions things that sound interesting and I can find a link to them, I'll go ahead and pop them over there. I believe she has entered in some of her information, her emails along with her website, etc. So feel free to reach out to her via that. And then, of course, if you do have any connectivity issues during the summit or that your video is lagging, refreshing is the number one thing. Crowdcast also does say that Google Chrome is the preferred browser. So perhaps if you have that loaded, you can try it over there. And if that doesn't work, you can go ahead and click the tech link below, and that'll give you some ideas. Or you can always navigate over to the exhibit hall, where we have some summit leaders, team members standing by to walk you through things if you're having issues. All right, so I believe that that's what we've got going. We're going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Karen for her presentation. So you go ahead and take it away, Karen.
Yay. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and listening to me and being a part of this summit. It's the coolest ever that we're doing this and really making history. So I am really excited to be a part of it. I want to tell you a little bit about my story, about the brewery that I started and my passion for beer and my passion for what I do. I'm from Colorado. I'm a Colorado native, born here, went to the University of Colorado for an undergraduate degree and CU Denver for a degree in an MBA degree in Entrepreneurial Studies. I didn't think I would start my own company. I really wanted to pick a track like marketing or finance. And what I found was that I really liked entrepreneurship, where I got to learn every aspect of the business. I tell myself and others that I'm a master of none. I just know a little bit about each part. So I'm just dangerous in each part, really. But that's what that degree did for me. And I love that. And it's definitely a part of my story and how I got started. My work history, primarily in beer, was I started working at Coors in Golden, Colorado, and started in recruiting. So that's really how I got into the business, was recruiting for all different departments within Coors, but wanted to get more on the front end of the business and ended up in logistics. So dealing with distributors and getting beer from Golden to distributors in the central region. And that's where I got my beer industry knowledge, learned a lot about the 3-tier system, built relationships with distributors, and worked with the sales team a lot. And that's really the work background that I got that gave me some great insight into the industry. And then I was working there, was pregnant with twins, and was diagnosed with melanoma in 2007. And the way that they found the skin cancer was that it was in my belly button, and I was pregnant. So I would not have found it had I not been pregnant, most likely. Had it removed and some radiation treatment done while I was pregnant. Had twin girls that fall in September and ended up staying at Coors, but wanting to work part-time while I had twin babies at home. So I worked still part-time in a warehouse, really a distribution center for Coors for a couple of years. So stayed within the beer industry and kept that knowledge and that education going. And then a year later, was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and an autoimmune thyroid disease. So twin babies, a year old, and thyroid cancer, and had to get my thyroid removed, radiation treatment done. Needless to say, not the best couple of years of my life at all. Um, Part of my treatment for thyroid, I had the surgery done, I had radiation done, and I just still didn't feel good. I was really, really tired. I was making a lot of mistakes, that more than I usually make at work. Just things that I shouldn't have been making mistakes on or forgetting, really this brain fog. Um, and so went back to doctors to try and figure things out. And thyroid disease is related to celiac disease. And doctors suggested at the time that I cut gluten out of my life. And I did. Took about 2 weeks and major changes happened. I felt significantly better, um, brain wise, physically, all around. And multiple things have cleared up since then that I didn't know were tied to that. Other skin issues, seasonal allergies. I mean, a whole random mix of things that, looking back, I probably had issues for quite a long time. However, the biggest issue when I went gluten free is that I couldn't drink beer. And I was working in the beer industry, love beer. Colorado's, we all know, a great beer state. Craft beer was really up and coming and on the move in Colorado, and still is such a part of our social life. I mean, we have a lot of sports teams here, so beer's tied to tailgate parties and going to baseball games and going to football games and then skiing and mountain biking. And I just feel like après ski, I want a beer. And this crowd, I know I'm talking to beer people, so you get it. And it was really tough to not have that. Not only just because I love beer, but it's such a part of your social life. That's what we do. We go to a brewery, we go to a tailgate party, and I just don't like being the person with a vodka or a wine or whatever. I want to have a beer. And so what that did was lead me to trying to figure out how to make great gluten-free beer. There were a couple of beers in the market at the time, but I just felt like the quality wasn't there. And so I just started researching. And ultimately, when we all think about beer, it's, 4 ingredients: water, hops, yeast, and grain. And water and hops are gluten-free. And I can find yeast that's gluten-free. It just needs to be propagated in a gluten-free environment. Um, so the big challenge was grain. And at the time, what people were using instead of grain for gluten-free beer was sorghum syrup or rice syrup. And the beer really tasted like you were using syrup only, really thin, kind of sweet, cidery. Sorghum's got a funky taste that I didn't love. And ultimately, I needed to find a replacement for barley or wheat. And I did a search, and there's a couple of crazy things that have happened around this company that just felt really serendipitous. And this is one of them. And I was looking for gluten-free malt. Where in the world can I buy gluten-free malt? And the only malt company in the world at the time that was dedicated gluten-free was 60 miles from my front door in Colorado and owned by a woman. So this woman's name is Twyla Souls. If you don't know her, find her. She is a total badass and just brilliant, and it's called Grouse Malt House. And I drove 60 miles to meet with her, and we talked beer, and we both had the exact same vision. Like, we could make amazing craft beer that's gluten-free. I was more selfish and just wanted to make the beer. She wanted to come up with really great ingredients so that people like me could make beer. And we had just had this shared vision. We hit it off. There are challenges with the grains that she makes. So she malts and roasts. Her line of ingredients are millet, buckwheat, corn, quinoa. I think that's primarily it. And I've experimented with almost all of them, but the two that I landed on were millet and buckwheat. So every single beer that we make is a combination of millet and buckwheat. But there are challenges with these grains. Right away, the biggest challenge that I had to figure out was the physical size of the grain. So every mash press pretty much on the planet is made for barley and wheat, and millet is significantly smaller. So we run into a lot of issues with stuck meshes, and or grain just going completely through your screen. Like the gaps are too wide. And so I worked with Colorado State University, their fermentation and science school, and Twyla at Grouse, and designed a custom screen for our 10-barrel system when we went to open. Our ladders are still horribly long, but we avoid mash presses, and we can utilize this crazy grain that we get to use that works amazing. So that was one big challenge. The other is that it's very inefficient. So, we have to buy more of the grain to get the same amount of sugar that you would get out of barley or wheat. And barley and wheat are great for brewing. Maybe millet and buckwheat, not so much. But what happens is we end up with amazing beer that the ultimate goal was, if I put my beer and a traditional beer in front of you, you wouldn't know the difference. It's just as good. So that was the goal, and a ton of experimentation and time went into figuring out how to best utilize these grains. There's different temperatures that need to be used. We use enzymes as well. So there's a technical side of brewing with these grains that's really important to get this end product that I was shooting for, that I was aiming for. One of the other really amazing things that happened when I was getting started or thinking I might start this company, was that I started looking for a brewer, and I'm thinking, who's going to brew gluten-free beer? No one's even heard of it, really. This was a while ago, and came across, a couple of applicants that were exactly what I thought, kind of some homebrewers that didn't know much about it. But one of my applicants was a 25-year-old brewing veteran. He's brewed for breweries you might have heard of, Bell's, Kunin's, a bunch here in Denver, and happened to be looking for a job when I was looking for a brewer. And to get that level of expertise in my front door, and then when I say my front door, like of my house, because while I'm trying to find a spot and do construction, he was literally brewing beer in my kitchen every day to try and get recipes honed in. So his name is Wayne Burns, and award-winning brewer, 25-year veteran. To get that guy and that level of expertise to brew my beer right off the bat really brought us to a level where I was like, all right, we can do this. We can make amazing beer. And that really changed our trajectory as well, was having him. And like I said, one of those serendipitous things that changed everything for me and for Holidaily. So we ultimately opened a tap room in February of 2016. So we just turned 5 years old. When we opened, we had 3 beers on tap, and we were open 3 days a week. I wasn't really sure, would people come to a gluten-free tap room, all gluten-free. It's 2016. It was a new thing. And so we opened that year, started self-distributing, literally in my mom car, knocking on doors and having people taste my beer, and delivering Favorite Blonde in my Toyota Highlander. Like that's how we got started. And working the bar, we were open Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and just built it from there. And by the end of year 1, we had 10 beers on tap. We were distributing 2 beers, and we were open every day of the week. I mean, that's really how fast this has grown for us. Wayne has since left me, our head brewer. He went and started Burns Family Artisan Ales, which is an unbelievable brewery in Denver. He doesn't brew gluten-free. He has Holidaily available, which is great. And we're still friends, but the 2 years we got of his expertise completely changed things for me and for Holidaily. So since our first year, we have continued to grow. One thing to know about the gluten-free beer category in general, 8,000 breweries across the US, craft breweries. Only 16 are dedicated gluten-free. When I opened, we were the 5th. So it's grown quite a bit, but there's very few. And majority are tap rooms. Like they're not huge. They just have a little tap room. With COVID, of course, there's a lot more beer to go than there used to be out of tap rooms. But ultimately, I think the majority are a tap room setup. So we have our tap room, and we grew to a point, we kept adding tanks, to where our tap room was full of tanks and not seating space. And so what I did is in 2019, we opened a brand new brewery across the street from our tap room, and it's a production brewery. And it did a couple of things for us. It's much bigger. It's a 10,000 square foot facility. We have room for 10,000 barrels of production over there. And we also bought a mash press. We invested in a mash press over there because we talked about the efficiency of this grain. It's expensive and it's inefficient. And so I really had to address how can we make more efficient gluten-free beer. And the mash press was an answer to that. So we have 600 barrels of fermentation over there. We have a canning line over there. So that's really helped us open up and get to grow the business. Of course, we opened it in 2019 and then 2020 the world shut down. So timing's a little bit of everything, but we kept our taproom space and got to clear out some of the 20 barrels that we sold those and made more seating room in the tap room. And then majority of production is in the production facility. We still have our initial 10 barrel system just as a pilot over in the tap room, and that fills our taps and lets us do test runs and really cool beers. One, just side note, awesome beer that we did this year was that Nabisco came out with a gluten-free Oreo. So we did an Oreo Stout, which is so awesome. And we got written up all over. It was really cool and got a lot of press, and it was a good beer on top of it. So just some fun things that we get to do that are really cool in this gluten-free niche, in this gluten-free avenue. So built this production brewery across the street and made a transition at that point from self-distribution to get on board with distributors. And a lot of my relationships that I had in the past that I had kept have come through to help with that. So we are on board with some of the Coors guys, or that's just how I meet other people. So that's been really valuable. And knowing that business has helped, I think, a lot. So we now distribute throughout all of Colorado, all of Arizona, all of Kansas, Kansas City, so the Missouri and Kansas side. And we just shipped beer this week to Houston, Texas. So we'll be in Houston and all of East Texas. So that's really where we are right now. This facility will get us, ultimately regionally, I'm hoping, in more and more locations. It's built right now, like I said, for 10,000 barrels of volume. But we can add tanks. I built it so we can add some space. So our very first year, we brewed 257 barrels. Last year was 2,200. So we've grown over 850% since we opened. Some really cool avenues for our beer are concessions. I had Mile High Stadium, the Broncos Stadium, call me and say, our number one complaint in 2017 was gluten-free options. It wasn't drunk people or parking or bathrooms. It was gluten-free options. And they reached out to me, and I was freaking out because I've been a Bronco fan my whole life. So we're in Mile High Stadium. We're in Coors Field. We're in CU stadiums. DIA is another really cool one. There's just a lot of opportunity for this little niche to fill some gaps for people that want to drink beer. And golf courses, like, everyone wants to drink beer on a golf course. And if you're gluten-free and you can't, it's just not any fun. So it's okay. It can still be fun. But I do want to share one other story and just kind of leave with one message around how I got started. And I don't know, just a cool story. So Terry Ferendorf just spoke out of Pink Boots. When I was getting started, I couldn't afford to go to CBC, and it happened to be in Denver that year. So this was probably 2015. And I couldn't afford to go to the whole conference, but I'm looking like, is there a women's group? I could just go to a lunch. And sure enough, there was a Pink Boots lunch that day. So I paid the $15, went to the lunch. Terry got up and talked about the history of Pink Boots. And I grabbed her card on my way out of this meeting and waited a couple weeks because it was post-conference. She's probably really busy, and called, and it was in my head like, I know I'll call, she won't answer, I'll leave a message, and that'll be it. I tried. And I called and she answered. And I really stumbled in this phone call, like, didn't know what to say. Was nervous and was like, "Hi, Karen. I'm in Colorado. I really want to start a gluten-free brewery. I don't know how to brew and I don't have a recipe. What do you think?" And it was quiet for a second, and she was like, "That's what you're worried about?" And I was like, "Yeah, seems like kind of a big deal." And she said, "Oh no, there's consultants out there that can help you with recipe development and setting up a brewery, but just distribution, and you've got a great business background, and seems like you have funds to get this going or could get them. You're like most of the way there. I'll help you with the recipe piece." So she gave me access to consultants that could help me get started. And um, it was just a funny conversation, and crazy that she answered the phone. So she sent me a list of consultants, and I followed up and did that and found one. And ultimately, it was integral in getting going and getting started. And so two things out of that story that I want to share with this group in particular. One is do something brave every single day. And for me, that was calling Terry. I was scared out of my mind calling this like nationally known, amazing woman. And I was just this nobody that didn't know how to brew. So, and especially as I was getting going, I had to do something brave every single day. And I wrote that down and I did it. And I'm like, it was just something uncomfortable every day, like calling the TTB and figuring out licensing. Like I was horrified, or calling a Terry or whatever, but I made myself do something uncomfortable every day. And then the other thing just for this group is if you're on the receiving end of that, um, empower women, help them. All she really had to do was send me an email of contacts. So it wasn't a ton, but it completely changed my life. And so, just her being willing to do that and help another woman was amazing. And it's not obviously not just women, empower everybody. But for this group and this um, platform, if someone reaches out to you and it's just going to take a minute to an hour, help them, because that's really how we're all going to make progress together. So those were really the 2 points that I wanted to just drive home today and talk most about. I love this industry. I'm super passionate about our beer. We won the gold medal in 2019, so it's a great product, and I'm just proud of everything my team has done. World domination is the ultimate goal. I don't hide that, so just know that's what I want. In the gluten-free beer category, I want to be the obvious choice for gluten-free beer, and we have built an unbelievable team, and I'm just proud of where we've gone. So I have some time left for questions. I think there's a couple here. Let me look.
Yeah, let me take a look here. I can read them off to you there. So yeah, we've got the first one here says, how well are you received in the beer community as a gluten-free brewery?
Yeah. I think we definitely, it's similar to a woman, honestly, but we had to prove ourselves. And that was the quality of the beer, the quality of the liquid. And I feel like a lot of times we get one shot. So, people come in hesitant already because it's gluten-free and a lot of stuff isn't very good that's gluten-free. And so we get one chance for them to try it and be like, oh, this is amazing. So since we've proven ourselves, I really feel like we've been received well. One very cool thing that has happened is people have found the value of having a gluten-free option. And what I mean by that is if I'm going out with 10 friends and I'm the high maintenance gluten-free one, I get to pick where we're going generally, or I decide if we stay or not, because if there's an option for me, we'll go there. Or we'll stay there. And so what has happened is we are in about 40 to 45 brewery tap rooms in Colorado because they want to have a gluten-free option. So my group of 10 goes to, I mean, Woods Boss, but I mean, there's 45 of them, a lot of them. Blue Moon, the Blue Moon tap room here. What else? New Terrain. There's a ton, but you know, a bunch of these breweries in Denver, we go to one of those tap rooms. I can drink Holidaily. They can drink whatever the other beers are. And so they move our beer and then they also move their beer. So the gluten-free person in a party is a big influence on the entire group and where they go and where they stay. And so the breweries are realizing the value of it. They don't want to deal with the pain and the ass of brewing gluten-free beer. It is expensive and difficult. And so we get to be their beer option. And that has built great relationships between us and the breweries here. And then we like to do collaborations with them too. 9 of the breweries that we are in just did a collaboration brew with us. They came to Holidaily. They helped with the recipe. They got to see how we brew, checked out our custom screen, brewed for a day, which is hang out and have beers. And then they're all going to put that beer on tap here in a couple weeks. May is Celiac Awareness Month. And so we really did it around that. And then all these breweries will have it on tap. So just we plug ourselves in with the community too. We get involved with events, but it did take some time. And I think it's still, there's still hesitancy in the gluten-free category, but we're working our butts off to earn respect.
That's great. I mean, so much of the craft beer community, they take on the responsibility of looking to educate folks on how to appreciate beer, on how to, appreciate it, do all these different things. So it's really great that you're out there reaching out to folks and kind of giving them a better understanding of why this is important. And that's wonderful. So thank you for that. And also congrats on your gold medal. That's killer.
Thank you. I'm a little competitive you can tell with the world domination statement.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
Winning something like that was the coolest ever. Yeah.
And you know what? It's empowering to hear women stand up and say, no, I'm going to take it all. I'm going to take it all on. And nothing's standing in my way.
That's right.
So kudos. All right. We got one more question here for you. This one's a homebrew related, which is fantastic. What kind of a screen do you recommend for homebrewers who are trying to start with gluten-free brewing? And Jenna M asked this question. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a couple of resources out there for gluten-free homebrewers. One is a Facebook page called Zero Tolerance Gluten-Free Homebrew Group. And they are awesome. Lots of resources there. There's also a website called glutenfreehomebrewing.com. But I would recommend a bag, like a mesh bag, honestly. And that's what we had to do initially, was put it in really a mesh bag. So screen-wise, that's what we had to do. We used a bag.
So like the finest micro, is it like the fine or the coarser style bags, do you find? Does it get a little bit too blocked up if you use the fine?
No, I think fine. Michelle, I see Michelle's on here and she might know more than I do, but I would say fine.
That's, I believe, 300 microns.
And I don't know those specifics.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Try it and see, right?
Michelle, I am good at selling beer and drinking beer. I'm not the best brewer, but I have homebrewed a little.
No problem. No problem. All right. Does anyone else want to throw a question in the chat real quick and we can get that to you? If not, we will say thank you so much to Karen for coming on. It was very enlightening.
Yeah.
Really great to get representation for folks who, have specialty needs in the beer segment. And glad you're out there in Colorado.
Yes.
Making people happy. So beer makes people happy, and gluten-free beer makes certain people really happy. So thank you for doing that.
Of course. I have 2 requests. One is go follow us on social media, and the other is if you're in Colorado, come to the tap room. I'd love to have anybody. So, and my email's at the top. I'm open to any questions or any connections. Would love it. So
great.
Totally feel free.
I also did throw a link in there to that Facebook group you were talking about, the Zero Tolerance Grain-Free group. So if any of y'all are interested, the chat does remain. So even if you go do some other things and you're like, dang, I didn't get that link, come on back and it should still be there for you. Okay.
Great.
So,
yeah.
Right. Hey, look at our timing on that. 10:30 on the nose. We are bosses.
All right. Thank
right,
you
Kim, thanks so
all.
much.
Yeah,
Hope you
thanks for
enjoy
everything.
What's a question for you? What's a couple sessions you're looking to attend?
Oh man. I saw Michelle has one coming up. You had talked about the digital content. I think that's gonna be great.
Wonderful.
And Julia is always amazing. So that's
Yeah,
always,
totally. And that's all
yeah,
on replay already. So once the session
exactly.
ends, it's available for replay. So if you missed anything, head back over. And I just do want to give everyone just another real heads up on navigating. Right at the top of your screen here, if you're on the desktop, you'll see schedule session 5 of 37. You just click on that guy, gives you a whole drop down. And you can just scroll through, click on there, and it'll take you to the session you want. So, all right, you guys, we're going to sign off for now, and we hope to see you in some other sessions soon.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
everybody. Thanks for
Bye, Karen.
joining.
Later.